Ladies and gentlemen, the following segment of the podcast is presented exclusively by the Heritage Foundation. For 52 years, Heritage has fought tirelessly for America's founding principles and advancing conservative public policies. Much more than a think tank, Heritage is a conservative policy powerhouse, fighting for the everyday American to advance common sense policies and dismantle the D.C. bureaucracy. Our founding fathers gave us an extraordinary system of government, and the Heritage Foundation is dedicated to defending the heritage and carrying on their legacy for future generations. So get involved by completing their national survey on President Trump's agenda by visiting heritage.org/Levin. That's heritage.org/LEVIN. Paid for by the Great Heritage Foundation.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. I hope you're well out there. Welcome. Man, oh man, Shevitz. Lots going on out there. Ukraine says rare earth deal with Trump in final stages at Breitbart. Francis Martel, the government of Ukraine, confirmed it is in the final stages of an agreement on selling rare earth minerals to America, a deal Donald Trump floated as a way for America to get a return on its investment in supporting Kiev against the Russian invasion. The announcement of the final stages of a deal made by Minister of Justice Ola Stefanashia followed comments by President Vladimir Zelensky, in which he expressed hesitation about signing off significant rights to Ukraine's plentiful rare earth minerals or in heavily indebting Ukrainians in the future. Zelensky's remarks after a turbulent week in which Trump disparaged him as a dictator and implied he should vacate his office led many in international media to conclude Ukraine would ultimately decline any such agreement. But they insisted on Monday that the deal was not only still happening, but almost complete. You know, ladies and gentlemen, this is why I do what I do. This is why I say the things that I say. I use my platforms on Blaze and on Fox and here behind this microphone, but especially Blaze and Fox a few days back. I think, in fact, in the case of Fox, it was Saturday. In the case of Blaze, it was before that. I said, this is a brilliant move by the president. Not about going into Ukraine. This is not about going into Ukraine and seizing their minerals and assets. It's about making a business arrangement. Now, I don't know what this is going to be, but I hope it's along the lines that I urged on these various platforms. That is, the United States and Ukraine go into business. They have what we want, and they don't really know how to get it. They are atop of massive amounts of crucially important rare earth minerals and metals that we could use. The Russians want them. That's the real reason why Putin attacked Ukraine. Yes, for geographic purposes. Yes, because he wants to reach into Poland and Romania and the Balkan states. There's no doubt about it. But he wanted to capture all these rare earth minerals and other incredibly valuable minerals. So does Communist China. And that's why they're in the Arctic Circle as well, because the Arctic Circle, under that ice, under that tundra, there's an enormous amount, plentiful, rare minerals. We're talking about lithium and titanium and on and on and on, uranium. And so when President Trump said, you know, we want access to that, that got my little brain thinking, well, why don't we have a huge investment relationship with Ukraine? They make money, we get access to these minerals. We can mine them, we can excavate, we can develop them. They cannot. They simply do not have the ability to do so. And in so doing, it's better than them joining NATO, if that's controversial, because we'll have an American presence in Ukraine, businessmen, employees, companies, security. And the president has made abundantly clear today that there's going to be some kind of a security arrangement for Ukraine. Just have faith. Just have trust. And so this is something that I talked about at some length. This is something that I hope will take place because it's really the best outcome for the United States and Ukraine. And Russia, well, really will seriously have to think 1,000 times before it invades Ukraine again, especially again with a security infrastructure. I have no idea what's happening. Hopefully it's along those lines. I have to believe it's something like that. I also have a lot of faith in General Kellogg, Keith Kellogg. I've had him on my programs multiple times, and he's very solid on these issues. And he understands who the oppressor and the oppressed, quote unquote, are in that war. He understands what's what, and a nice, clear-eyed thinking on that. And I think President Trump is using his deal-making smarts to try and get this done. So we shall see. And I think Russia's a little nervous about it because earlier today, or it was last night, they said, wait a minute, we have rare earth minerals too. We'll make some deals with the United States. No, they won't. And they're not to be trusted in any respect. That's for sure. Now, the wealth has made Ukraine, they write at Breitbart, an attractive target for China, too. The Ukrainian government, prior to Zelensky being elected president, became a member of China's Belt and Road Initiative, a debt trap scheme in which China offers poor countries predatory loans for alleged infrastructure projects. They write, Zelensky has embraced the potential of Chinese investment in post-war Ukraine, inviting dictator Xi Jinping to talks and hoping Chinese businesses take an interest in reconstruction. But hopefully, and I believe, we got there first. A major American presence in the Ukrainian mineral industry, they write, would likely have a deterrent effect on Chinese investment. The whole thing would have a deterrent effect on China and Russia and have an enormously positive economic impact on the United States and Ukraine. Again, so much of what they have has not been properly mined and developed. In fact, so much of it hasn't been mined or developed at all. And we can handle that. We can do that. So the amount of money flowing into the United States, jobs in the United States, jobs in Ukraine by Americans, businesses in Ukraine. Ukraine, which is, I just read somewhere that they would need close to $600 billion or more than $500 billion to rebuild that country. Well, this is a way to do it. And as I pointed out on Blaze and Fox and here, this is better than the Marshall Plan. This is better. This is an investment. This is a partnership in which we make money too, in which we get access to we want too. But it also is an enormous boost to the Ukrainians. In other words, it's called capitalism. Am I allowed to use that word today? I don't know if I am. But I will anyway. Again, we will see, but there seems to be a very positive view of this, whereas 72 hours ago, 96 hours ago, for the Ukrainians, there was not. And this is one of the reasons, at least in my little way, I've been encouraging this and encouraging the Ukrainians and us. Make this deal a business deal, make this deal as the president wants it to be, and ensure that both parties make money, ensure that we get the minerals that we need, that we help them exploit that. And it'll also be a wonderful national security boon to the Ukrainians because China won't get access to their minerals and neither will Russia. I think this is a big deal depending on how it comes down. It's only a matter of time. I think they said it could be determined as early as Friday. And so, again, as they point out in Breitbart, Putin tries to undercut Zelensky deal by offering U.S. minerals. That's all a fake, phony, and a head bob. Francis Martel, again, Russian strongman Putin held a meeting on Monday to discuss the development of his country's rare earth mineral industry, in which he suggested he would welcome American investment in the sector, in both his country and the parts of Ukraine that he has seized. And that timing coincides with President Trump negotiating an agreement with Ukraine to develop its rare earth and other critical mineral industries, which the president has now said today, and he said yesterday, we have a potential deal. Zelensky's people have said exactly the same thing, and he may wind up in the United States, Zelensky, on Friday. While Ukrainian President Zelensky has expressed some hesitation in public to the terms of such an agreement, as government officials announced they were almost finished hashing out the details. And both sides said the terms were very constructive for Ukraine and the United States. That's what I want to hear. That's what I want to hear. Man, oh, Manischewitz, there's a lot more. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Listen, folks, if you're like me, you're passionate about protecting our American values. That's why I trust the Heritage Foundation. They're dedicated to promoting policies based on free enterprise, limited government, and traditional American values. The Heritage Foundation does more than just produce policy recommendations. They're mobilizing conservatives across the country. And right now, they need you to take action by completing their national survey on President Trump's agenda. Your responses to this survey will help guide Heritage leadership as they work closely with folks in Washington to promote your values, secure America's borders, and restore our freedoms. Here's what I want you to do. Visit heritage.org/Levin, heritage.org/Levin to complete your survey. It's very, very important. My friends at Heritage need you to act now to help them maximize the impact on President Trump's first 100 days. Heritage is committed to preserving our Founding Fathers' principles and ensuring that America remains a beacon of freedom and opportunity. So I know you won't sit on the sidelines. You'll get involved, please, today, and make your voice heard. Visit heritage.org/Levin. That's heritage.org/Levin. Please complete your survey today. That's heritage.org/Levin, paid for by the Great Heritage Foundation. By the way, you better believe Communist China is watching what's going on with Russia and Ukraine. If they believe for 1 second that Russia could get away with invading Ukraine, that's going to encourage them and motivate them to attack, of course, Taiwan. I don't think that's going to happen in terms of motivation. I think what Trump's doing and what Keith Kellogg's doing, I think there's a lot going on behind the scenes that we're unaware of. Is going to make it quite clear that in the end, Ukraine's going to be in a much better position. That's my hope. And I really think a well-constructed deal on these minerals will make the difference, just as the Marshall Plan made the difference for much of Europe that the Soviets hadn't yet conquered or tried to take over. I believe this can and would too. But even in a bigger way for Ukraine, I mean, if there's an American presence, if we're investing great sums of money and there's joint ownership or a partnership in what's under the ground in Ukraine and so forth and so on, then we have a stake there. Just so people understand, I believe this is Donald Trump's direction. Again, we're going to find out. If it is, it's genius. Well, I've been encouraging it. By the way, I just saw, Mr. Producer, at Chicago Midway Airport. I don't know what the hell's going on. A hero Southwest commercial pilot, a hero, who made a last-minute maneuver so as not to have a collision with a private jet. And the National Transportation Safety Board and the FAA put out a statement saying any pilot that doesn't comply and strictly comply with FAA orders is going to lose their license. That suggests to me that there was a problem with the private pilot. He goes onto the runway, kind of quasi-parks there, and the Southwest commercial jet, the airline, is about to land, Mr. Producer. And what does the pilot do with the Southwest airline? He pulls up the jet as fast as he can. Pulls up the jet and avoids the private jet. Wow. These pilots must be on edge with what's going on, especially takeoffs and landings. And especially landings. Very worrisome. North Korea steals $1.5 billion as it pulls off the world's biggest ever heist, writes the Telegraph. State-backed North Korean hackers have stolen $1.5 billion of cryptocurrency in the largest heist in world history. Agents from Pyongyang were able to breach the systems of Dubai-based exchange Bybit to steal the digital coin Ether, according to security analysts. The hackers stole more cryptocurrency in one attack than all the funds stolen by North Korea cyber criminals in 2024 combined. When the rogue state cyber attackers made off with around $1.3 billion in digital coins, according to cryptocurrency analysts Chainalysis. The $1.5 billion total eclipses the largest known bank theft of all time, when Saddam Hussein sold $1 billion from the Iraqi central bank ahead of the Iraq war in 2003. Now, the record haul comes as Kim Jong-un, North Korea's supreme leader, the inbred, turns to elite units of computer hackers to prop up the communist dictatorship's failing economy. Chainalysis said the attack served as a stark reminder of the advanced tactics employed by the country's hackers, as well as its technical skills. North Korean hackers are adept at what is known as social engineering, manipulating people to do what they want in order to pave the way for a heist. In other words, to get them to invest in certain ways and so forth, to load up a particular platform and then steal from it. This can involve developing relationships with targets over email, digital chats, sometimes over a period of months. Cybersecurity experts believe North Korea's notorious Lazarus Group are the masterminds behind the latest attack. The group has terrorized Western businesses for more than a decade, with a series of cyber breaches that have caused billions of dollars in losses. Elliptic, or cryptocurrency analysis business, most of us don't understand this, but just stick with me, said the hacking group was the most sophisticated and well-sourced launderer of crypto assets in existence. This is what these fascist and Marxist regimes focus on: technology. Technology. Because they can't feed their people. Now, the group is believed to be part of North Korea's intelligence agency, the Reconnaissance General Bureau. It has been linked to past attacks, including the hack of Sony in 2014, when the group leaked private emails from executives in an attempt to block the release of the comedy film The Interview, which lampooned North Korea's supreme leader. Doesn't take much to lampoon him. And the Lazarus Group has also been blamed for a nearly $1 billion heist from Bangladesh Bank in 2016, and that country can ill afford it. And the global WannaCry cyber attack, which knocked hundreds of thousands of computers offline with damaging ransomware, including NHS systems. While North Korea once relied on its elite hacking cadres to conduct espionage and steal trade secrets, increasingly they've been employed as a weapon of economic warfare to bolster the coffers of the heavily sanctioned regime. North Korea started using cyber attacks for espionage, stealing R&D, and intellectual property, said Rafe Piling of the security company SecureWorks. Subsequently, they've really capitalized on it as a source of revenue. So there you have it. That's North Korea. And, you figure these regimes will die of economic atrophy. Not like this. Not like this. This is a big problem. North Korea stealing like that. There's a lot more, and I want to cover it all. And there's a lot more domestically going on. Big stuff. I'll be right back. Folks, I need to talk to you about something crucial to the future of America. Our friends at the Heritage Foundation are on the front lines fighting for our conservative values. Heritage is dedicated to promoting policies that will help bolster our economy, protect our borders, and uphold the rule of law. They're working tirelessly to defend our Constitution and the principles that make America exceptional. To help accomplish this, they need you to complete their national survey on President Trump's agenda today. So you can participate in this survey by going to heritage.org/Levin. That's heritage.org/Levin. Your responses are crucial to this survey, and they'll provide Heritage leadership with crucial feedback as they work closely with the folks in Washington to promote your values, secure America's borders, and restore our freedoms. By completing this very important survey today, you're standing up for the values that have made this country great. And my friends at Heritage need you to act now to maximize their impact on President Trump's first 100 days. So please don't wait. Our future depends on you. Together, we can make a difference, and future generations inherit a nation that is free, prosperous, and strong. So please, right now, visit heritage.org/Levin, heritage.org/Levin, complete your survey, and join the fight for America's future. That's heritage.org/Levin, paid for by the Great Heritage Foundation.
Mark Levin, the Great One.
The Great One, Mark Levin.
Dial in now, 877-381-3811.
All right. Trump revokes Biden memo threatening to withhold arms from Israel. Waits our buddy Joel Pollack. POTUS has reportedly revoked a policy under Biden to threaten arms sales to Israel if the country does not satisfy critics of its human rights record while battling Palestinian Hamas terrorists in Gaza. Well, the Biden regime generally avoided concluding that Israel was violating human rights standards. NSM 20 and other directives held the threat they were blackmailing Israel. You either do what we tell you to do or we're withholding arms. And in fact, they did boycott Israel and did withhold a lot of arms. They didn't even need a pretext to do it. They did it. They were impounding funds. And, of course, the Democrats were perfectly happy with that. Trump has rescinded this policy, restored Israeli confidence, Washington Post reported. The White House has repealed the directive, which President Biden imposed as his administration struggled to reconcile its support for Israel's war against Hamas militants. Comes as the Trump administration puts his America First mark on U.S. foreign policy. That is a highly, first of all, nearly illiterate sentence. It's a long run-on sentence. But number two, political sentence. Let me put it in plain English. Biden was blackmailing the Israelis, threatening to withhold arms if they didn't march in line and do as he demanded. He's the first president to do so in such a systematic way, period. And not only that, he did in fact boycott Israel on a number of major arms needs and so forth and so on. A February 21 order from National Security Advisor Michael Waltz, a copy of which was obtained by the Post, relays Donald Trump's decision to immediately rescind Biden's national security memorandum. And the repeal was also confirmed by several current and former U.S. officials who spoke on the condition of anonymity to discuss a decision that has not been made public. Critics such as Chris Van Hollen. You know, Chris Van Hollen is pro the enemy. His wife is a radical, pro-Islamist kook, and so is he. And you people in Maryland, not you who listen to this show, but the left wing, the Democrats, and many Jews who vote this SOB, shame on you. He's part of the enemy within, and I will always use that phrase, and Trump was properly using it too. If it was good enough for the likes of Abraham Lincoln, it's good enough for me. The enemy within. Chris Van Hollen is part of the enemy within, like Tlaib and the other reprobates. Trump has also lifted Biden's hold on heavy precision-guided bombs, D9 bulldozers, and other essential hardware to Israel. By the way, so these Reformed Jewish organizations come together, and they send a letter to Congress, really intended for Democrats, opposing the confirmation of Huckabee for ambassador to Israel from the United States. I've gotten to know Governor Huckabee. There's no more earnest, moral, thoughtful, pro-American, pro-Israel person you can find. And my stepson David was appointed by Donald Trump to be chief of staff there. We're proud of him, very. We're proud of Governor Huckabee, who should have already been confirmed for his position in Israel. There should have been a hearing called already. He should have been confirmed already. And you see, his great problem is that he's pro-Israel, pro-America, pro-Bible, and pro-Christian. Can't have that. Now, these Reformed Jewish organizations that I have denounced in the past are nothing more than left-wing Democrat organizations dressed up as religious institutions. That's right, I said it, damn it. I used to be part of a Reformed synagogue. And they've gone off the edge. They've gone off the edge. The entire Reformed Jewish movement is becoming increasingly an embarrassment to Jews. To Jews. To politics. Keep moving to the left. Keep moving to the left. Basically, you have mostly secular Jews who join the Reformed Jewish movement or the Reconstruction Jewish movement and so forth and so on. You want to really learn about Judaism? I mean, really? You're not going to learn about it at a Reformed synagogue. Hello! I speak the truth. I speak the truth from within. You really want to learn about it? You learn about it at Orthodox Jewish synagogues. You learn about it through Chabad. And there are many sources and platforms and facilities and rabbis and entities. If you're serious about the Jewish faith and you want to learn a whole lot about it, that's where you go. If you want to learn a lot about liberal Democrat politics, left-wing ideology, and on and on and on, then you go to most Reformed synagogues. Not all, but too damn many. And so they've come out against Huckabee, who we should strongly support. Governor Huckabee's a good man, and he'll do a great job. Gosh, these people just drive me crazy. On the left. On the left. They just drive me crazy. Elon Musk issues final warning to the federal government workers. Who are you and what are you doing? Oh, that's very offensive. I don't know. That's provocative. Who named him king? Who are you and what are you doing? Why are they doing that? Who are you and what do you do? Because they're trying to figure out if people who are getting paid are actually the people they say they are, and if they are the people they say they are, if they're actually working for their money. Gee willikers, it seems to me that any institution of any kind, in any form, in any place would want to know who are you and what are you doing, right, Mr. Producer? But God forbid if you raise that question with bureaucrats. God forbid if you fire any bureaucrats. God forbid if you cut off the gravy train to any entity, particularly on the left. God forbid you got your federal judges in there. We got a Biden judge in there who thinks he's now running the federal budget. That jerk, that fool, that fraud lied his way through his confirmation hearings. And now he's there, like he's king. Like he's king. Oh, and if you don't, for the second time you've been asked, say who you are and what do you do, you're going to get fired. Oh, my God, we can't do that. These are not tough questions. Who are you and what do you do? Who are you and what do you do? Who thought that would be controversial? It's not controversial. You're just not allowed to ask, you see. Now, anybody in the private sector, if they were to say to you, who are you and what do you do? Anybody can answer. They'd be happy to say, my name is Ernie Grabatsky. Let me tell you what I do. I wash the pot and pans for that restaurant over there. My name is Frank Smith. What do you do? I'm the guy who works on the nuclear codes and so forth and so on for a federal contractor for the federal. Okay, great. I think we ought to ask that question to politicians, too. Who are you and what the hell do you do? What do you do up there all the time? I think that's a fair question. Oh, yes. And there's more. Our friends at the Free Beacon. This is a wonderful site, by the way. Washington Free Beacon. Ready for this one? And the media are all in on this, too. Red District Doge protests. You've been reading about this and seeing this on TV where you have these Republican House members and they have these town hall meetings and they're loaded with these people protesting. Why are you cutting this? Why are you cutting that? Oh, yeah. All these people protesting, cutting waste, fraud, and abuse. Seems a little bizarre, doesn't it? It's been cited as proof of broad Musk backlash. Look at this. Even in Republican, even in red states, in red districts, the people are rising up. They want fraudulent, big, bloated, unaccountable government. They want their taxes pissed away. They want massive debt on the shoulders of their children and grandchildren and generations yet born. That's what the American people... Excuse me, that's not what they want. And so the media, working with the Democrats, working with dark money billionaire Democrats, have put together an entire Potemkin village of BS. A BS. In one case, a former Democrat county board candidate, writes Colin Anderson, and self-described political activist helped organize a viral demonstration in Georgia. When angry voters confronted Representative Rich McCormick over Doge at a town hall held in Georgia's Republican deep red district, the New York Slimes, the Holocaust-denying New York Slimes, Washington Compost, and CBS News cited the scene, that one scene, as proof of emerging bipartisan backlash over efforts to slash government spending. CBS included a quote from one of the protesters' organizers, Maggie Goldman, describing her only as a McCormick constituent. Goldman does live in McCormick's district, though she's far from a concerned supporter of the two-term Republican. A self-described, quote, Democrat and political activist, unquote, Goldman, who did not respond to a request for comment from the Free Beacon, coordinated volunteers for Pete Buttigieg's presidential campaign in 2019 and 2020, according to her LinkedIn. And shortly thereafter, she ran for her local county commission as a Democrat, seeking to enact, quote, a more inclusive policy agenda. Goldman has donated exclusively to Democrats and sent Kamala Harris. Who's that? I forget who that is. Sent her campaign more than $1,500 last year, according to campaign finance records. And on her Facebook page, she boasted of the national media attention the McCormick protests received, sharing screenshots of headlines alongside the caption, "We really were on fire." And I want to thank CBS, the New York Slimes, the Washington Compost. Here, the little Free Beacon did all the work for you. I want to thank you for outing yourselves as the lying SOBs that you are and always will be and always have been. Across the country, similar protests played out at House GOP town halls and district offices. There is no groundswell to support this kind of fraud and crookedness. Demonstrations drove mainstream media coverage of brewing backlash against the Trump administration as the lower chamber left Washington, D.C. for a week-long recess. Well-funded left-wing organizations organized many of them. George Soros, him, got more on him later, stick with me. George Soros funded Indivisible and Move On were at the center of the demonstrations. Both groups launched national mobilization efforts targeting the Trump-Musk agenda, quote-unquote, and Trump-Musk coup, quote-unquote, during the recess period. This George Soros is a hemorrhagic, a bleeding hemorrhagic on the tuchus of society. Move On said its members and allies will show up in congressional-led town halls and congressional offices around the country, targeting House Republicans. House Republicans, don't get weak-kneed. This is all a scam, whose votes will be crucial in opposing Trump and Musk's harmful policies, quote-unquote. Invisible issued a Musk or Us recess toolkit that showed members how to find their local town halls urging them, take the fight to Elon. This is all funded by Soros and other American-hating billionaires, America. The group's local organizers heeded the call, launching protests against House Republicans at town halls and district offices. They garnered widespread media coverage. MoveOn targeted the likes of Arizona's David Schweikert, California's Ken Calvert, Virginia's Jen Kiggins, while Indivisible organized protests against Michigan's Tom Barrett, Wisconsin's Brian Steele, and Scott Fitzgerald among them. Local outlets mentioned individuals' roles in the protests when covering them. Urban Milwaukee, for example, wrote that Fitzgerald's town hall attracted about 100 people, largely organized by an organization called Indivisible, mostly members of the Washington Ozaukee County Democrat Party. But the New York Times and CBS also mentioned the Fitzgerald town hall, though neither included Indivisible's involvement. You know what that's called, New York Times and CBS? Pravda, Al Jazeera, censorship, propaganda. That's what you do. The Times, after noting that Fitzgerald was asked to defend the administration's budget proposals, as voters demanded to know whether cuts to essential services were coming, acknowledged that many of the most vocal complaints came from participants who identified themselves as Democrats. The outlet did not disclose that those participants had professional organizing help. You know, they're probably the same people that have organized the Hitler Youth in our streets, you know, in our colleges and universities. CBS, meanwhile, said Fitzgerald faced pushback on the task force and calls for Congress to subpoena Musk to testify. It cited local news outlets and also reported the Washington County Democrat Party had encouraged people to show up. But again, it didn't mention the professionals who were involved, the professional Marxists. Indivisible's co-founder Ezra Levin teased the recess demonstrations by calling Musk a major weak link in the Trump administration. So this is all sort of communist-level type propaganda and organizations to create the impression that there's some kind of groundswell, a juggernaut against what's going on. This is what led up to the communist revolution in Cuba. This is what led up to the communist revolution in Russia. This is what led up to Mao in China, and this is now what the Democrats are doing in the United States. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Listen, folks, if you're like me, you're passionate about protecting our American values. That's why I trust the Heritage Foundation. They're dedicated to promoting policies based on free enterprise, limited government, and traditional American values. The Heritage Foundation does more than just produce policy recommendations. They're mobilizing conservatives across the country. And right now, they need you to take action by completing their national survey on President Trump's agenda. Your responses to this survey will help guide Heritage leadership as they work closely with folks in Washington to promote your values, secure America's borders, and restore our freedoms. Here's what I want you to do. Visit heritage.org/Levin, heritage.org/LEVIN to complete your survey. It's very, very important. My friends at Heritage need you to act now to help them maximize the impact on President Trump's first 100 days. Heritage is committed to preserving our founding fathers' principles and ensuring that America remains a beacon of freedom and opportunity. So I know you won't sit on the sidelines. You'll get involved, please, today, and make your voice heard. Visit heritage.org/Levin. That's heritage.org/LEVIN. Please complete your survey today. That's heritage.org/LEVIN, paid for by the Great Heritage Foundation. Democrats have a playbook. It's to accuse the Republicans of trying to destroy Medicaid, and then they say they're going to shut down the government to save Medicaid. And, of course, they will have their propagandists, known as the media. They will have their propagandists singing their tune like a bunch of howling hyenas. ABC News, one of the mouthpieces, Democrats plan to target House Republicans in vulnerable districts by highlighting potential cuts to Medicaid. No cuts to Medicaid. They're looking at whether, if people are actually able to work, because Medicaid, not all, but mostly goes to providing medical care for people under the poverty level. They want to see if illegal aliens are receiving it. They want to see if people, including young men who are quite capable of working but won't work and don't want to work, are receiving it. Well, you can't do that. No. And they call that cutting Medicaid. Cutting Medicaid. And so they're going to accuse the Republicans. Medicaid cuts provide politically perilous for House Republicans is the memo title. And then they're going to come to the defense of Medicaid by shutting down the government. That's their strategy. That's it. Burn the place down and then blame the Republicans. I'll be right back. This segment of the podcast is exclusively sponsored by PureTalk. PureTalk offers great coverage and can save your family money on your wireless bill every single month. Go to puretalk.com to find the plan that's right for you. Thank you again for listening, and thank you so much for this sponsorship, Pure Talk.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, America. Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. We will take calls near the end of the program in hour 3. And don't forget, you can listen to this program in its entirety or in bits and pieces, whenever you want, wherever you are, however you wish. Mr. Producer likes to listen to the show without his clothes on. Isn't that true, Rich? Only on Wednesdays. That's the rumor. It's very embarrassing. Here's what you do. Go to marklevinshow.com, click on Audio Rewind, and select your favorite platform. Or search Mark Levin Show on your favorite podcast platform. It's that simple. We also have our own YouTube channel. You can now find all my full podcasts, radio shows, interviews, specials on YouTube. Go to youtube.com at Mark Levin Show, or just search Mark Levin Show on YouTube. So you have numerous ways to access the podcast, to access what we're doing here. Of course, we have our stations, and we have our satellites, and we have our live streaming, and we have our apps, and we have everything. But just a reminder, all 3 hours, including the power hour, the third hour. Mark Levin Show, just search that on your favorite podcast platform. Or you can search the Mark Levin Show on YouTube. That's the easiest way to do it. Well, ladies and gentlemen, as we know, the late Joy Reid is no longer on MSLSD. They do have their standards. Actually, they don't. The lineup's not much better. But nonetheless, Joy Reid is now, well, where's she going to go? Like back to what? The internet? Back to blogging? Back to attacking gay people? I don't know. That's what she used to do. She was having a blast on the internet. Came to the attention of Comcast, NBC, MSNBC, and they said, this lady, she's good. Nobody is a bigger sleaze and trashing people than her. Well, I want to thank our friends at Grabian. This is a great site. They put together a montage of the best and the worst of Joy Reid. I haven't heard this. The best and the worst of Joy Reid, but I figured that's got to be entertaining and repulsive. Cut 18, go.
The race lady. Why would they call me that? Is this really about me fixating on race, or is it about you fixating on race?
But Donald Trump wants to never let black and brown folk up off the mat. It's evident what they mean by DEI, right? Why not just say what you mean? You can't stand black people. We get it. You've been heard. Are you committed to naming a black woman as your vice presidential running mate? They wanted to go after the brown people, too, because, of course, that is their other target.
You feel joy? Say joy.
It's not fashionable to be openly racist anymore in America, unlike what they call the good old days. Only the white Christian men may have the things. So you own everything that happens to your mixed status families and to your wives, sisters, and abuelas.
Joy.
If you are black plus anything else, you are black. Violent white nationalism that today threatens our national security.
Make a joyful noise.
Don't send any of those invites to any black women you know.
We do have a fascist groundswell in parts of this country, mainly among white men, let's be clear.
I mean, you're also a white guy. Are you saying the we is white folks need more kids?
Make your own dinner, MAGA. Make your own sandwiches. Wipe your own tears.
Only God can give that woman the kind of joy she had right there.
Similarities to what happened in Germany and what's happening now in America are just undeniable.
Donald Trump is acting like a Nazi, talking like a Nazi, and now posting like a Nazi.
Like Trump, Hitler was also viewed as a clown, a goon who could be kept in line after a 4-year break to, learn to accurately quote Adolf Hitler. Right-wingers were saying, get in the oven anytime you made any benign comment on Twitter. Elon Musk, I guess he misses the old South Africa in the 80s. He wants that back. Yes, not only is Trump a criminal, he's also someone who is arguably in mental and perhaps even cognitive decline. Yes, Biden is aging. He shuffles when he walks and forgets names and makes gaffes. But he's not incoherent. He can give us a prompter speech.
Yes!
Kamala Harris has passed the audition flawlessly. This has been, in many ways, a perfect campaign. For misappropriating black vernacular for misogynistic purposes, Elon Musk is the absolute worst. They've taught people the word inflation, right? Most people who would have never used that word ever in their lives are using it now because they've been taught it. So many of us are not safe in Donald Trump's America. If you're mad at United Healthcare and you voted for Trump, you essentially voted for America to be run like United Healthcare. And you think, oh yeah, they let the race lady in. Blah, affirmative action. Blah. Well, listen, let me cheer you up, okay? I got into Harvard and Yale, Vassar, and the University of Denver too, because I had a really high GPA and fantastic SAT scores. Let me just be clear. I got into Harvard only because of affirmative action. A black woman forced you to pay a $175 million fine. For me, there's something poetic and actually wonderful about that. It says something good about our country that we're still capable of having that happen. Go DEI. My DEIs are bringing it home.
It's amazing how long she lasted, isn't it? And then Rachel Madcow comes to her defense. Cut 19, go.
In all of the jobs I have had, in all of the years I have been alive, there is no colleague for whom I have had more affection and more respect than Joy Reid. I love everything about her. I have learned so much from her. I have so much more to learn from her. I do not want to lose her as a colleague here at MSNBC. And personally, I think it is a bad mistake.
Well, then let me make a suggestion to you. Resign. If you're not happy with your environment, you're not happy there, you think this was an act of racism, then do something about it, rather than bloviating with your excessive carbon footprint. Go ahead.
It is not my call, and I understand that, but that's what I think. I will tell you, it is also unnerving to see that on a network where we've got two non-white hosts in primetime. Both of our non-white hosts in primetime are losing their shows, as is Katie Fang on the weekend. And that feels worse than bad, no matter who replaces them. That feels indefensible, and I do not defend it.
Well, then resign in protest. I don't understand, Mr. Producer. Is somebody holding a gun to her head to force her to do what she does at $25 million an hour? Are they? No. I mean, if you feel that way, resign. If I felt I was working for a racist organization, I wouldn't stay here. But she's basically saying MSNBC is racist. I don't know how you can say that when they keep a real thug like Sharpton in the lineup, and there are others. But you see, this is the game that's played. Joy Reid should have been pulled a long time ago. She's poison. She's cancer in the body politic. She's a hater, in my humble opinion. She wasn't removed because of her race. She was removed because of her mouth. And Rachel Maddow is too stupid or too much of a hack, a hardcore left-wing hack, to admit the truth. That Joy Reid didn't belong on any major platform, even MSNBC, as minor as it is. And neither does Rachel Maddow. She defends this, but even more, she's condemning it. She's implying, if not stating, it's racist. Then leave. Why are you holding? I don't understand it, Mr. Producer. Leave. Now, Tiffany Cross, who was fired at MSNBC, sort of a Joy Reid knockoff, she jumped in today. Oh, yes. The reprobates are on the march. Cut 20, go.
And I apologize to Bishop Daughtry right now because I'm going to try to stop myself from delivering some 4-letter words. But I'm going to just say,
you're just so profound. We're all sitting here on the edge of our chair. Eyes wide open, chins on the floor. We can't wait to hear what Tiffany Cross has to say. And, of course, we're We're waiting for those 4-letter words from Tiffany. Oh, yeah. Nobody can express themselves better than Tiffany Cross. Go ahead.
Welcome. Don't shop where they won't hire you. The same thing they say. Don't even hate watch. And don't believe the hype, because what comes next are the attacks where they just start making up stuff.
Shut up, you idiot. I don't even know what you're talking about. You don't know what you're talking about. You sound like a moron. Now, that said, there's some truth to what she's saying. All you folks at MSLSD who think this is a racist, that is MSLSD operation, who think what was done to the poor Joy Reid was nothing more than out-of-the-closet racism, that she was removed not because she's an idiot, not because she's a hater and vile, not because of the things she said, but because of her skin color, you should resign en masse. Do it. Pretend you're the Washington Compost. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
This country was founded on freedom. Freedom from a country that forced us to buy overpriced tea, then tried blockading us when we dumped their tea into the ocean. How'd that work out? Well, it's time to throw your overpriced big wireless contract overboard, too. You don't need to pay $100 a month per person just to get a free phone. PureTalk, my cell phone company, says no to inflated prices and gimmicks. With a qualifying plan of just $45 a month, you can choose a free iPhone 14 or a free Samsung Galaxy with qualifying plans. And yes, this is for a premium service. Unlimited talk, text, 25 gigs of data, and mobile hotspot at a fraction of the price of the big three. All on America's most dependable 5G network. Get your free iPhone 14 or Samsung Galaxy with qualifying plans by visiting puretalk.com/Levin today. Switching is easy. Again, that's puretalk.com/LEVIN to claim your free iPhone or Galaxy with a qualifying purchase from PureTalk. America's wireless company, my wireless company. Remember when George Soros seized over 200 radio stations, including our affiliate, former affiliate, WPHT in Philadelphia? And simultaneous with that, they decided to drop this show in Philadelphia. What do you think of that? But we are in Philadelphia on our great Salem affiliate. But nonetheless, FCC to brief House Republicans on unprecedented George Soros scheme to control 200 radio stations, writes Sean Moran. At Breitbart, FCC Chairman Brendan Carr will brief the Republican Study Committee tomorrow about George Soros' unprecedented scheme to take over 200 Odyssey radio stations, Mr. Producer. Carr will detail how the FCC under Democrat leadership approved a license deal delivering leftist billionaire Soros over 200 Odyssey radio stations. Soros reportedly took foreign investment to make his bid for the 200 radio stations, which cover 40 media markets, and asked the commission to make an exception to the normal review process. And this is reportedly the first time such a deal was fast-tracked ever, without a national security review process, which normally takes at least a year. So it was done in September, you see, to try and get it done before the election and before, obviously, the ascendancy of Donald Trump. And Carr said in a statement last September opposing the move, the commission's decision is unprecedented. Never before has the commission voted to approve the transfer of a broadcast license, let alone the transfer of broadcast licenses for over 200 radio stations across more than 40 markets, without following the requirements and procedures codified in federal law. Well, it's a constitutional crisis, right, Democrats? Not once. And yet the commission breaks this new ground without seeking public comment or altering our established regulations, without actually changing the rules on the books, and without seeking the feedback of other federal agencies, the relevant equities. Federal law requires applicants with excessive foreign ownership to file a petition for declaratory ruling. At the same time, they seek FCC approval for the relevant license transfers. They must then complete that process before the FCC can approve the assignment of licenses. And that process must enable executive branch agencies with national security and specific policy expertise to weigh in. So they cut out that entire process and handed him the licenses. They cut out the entire process. By the way, I want to thank, among others, American First Legal, Judicial Watch, some of the others for jumping in with both feet on this. Landmark Legal Foundation as well. Carr continued, they did obtain approval from the FCC for their excessive foreign ownership. No, they didn't. Did the applicants afford the executive branch agencies with national security and relevant policy expertise an opportunity to consider their application as well as the source and amount of foreign investment? No, they did not. No, they did not. First, I just have to point out a commission eager, says another commissioner. Let's see, FCC Commissioner Nathan Symington. First, I just have to point out a commission eager to fast-track $1 billion broadcast media reorganization regarding foreign ownership concerns is the same commission that has gone back to the well several times to impose and reimpose foreign sponsorship identification rules on our smallest independent broadcast license holders every time they place local church content on the air. Hello, every time they place local church content on the air. So this was a robbery in daylight. That's what it was. It was a reward to George Soros, the sugar daddy of the anti-American radical left, the anti-Israel radical left, and of course of the Democrat Party, which in so many ways is anti-American and anti-Israel. They just awarded him 200 stations, more than 200, including in big markets like Philadelphia. Now think about that. Big markets in Florida. You didn't hear Butkus from the media, the same Democrats saying, hey, where did he get authority to do that? You know this guy, Senator Whitehouse from Rhode Island, who has a perpetual lisp? I guess he can't afford an orthodontist, or maybe there's something going on with his mouth and his lips. I don't know. He's a particularly loathsome human being. There are many there. Well, this guy is always skating on the edge of criminality, in my humble opinion. Well, he's pointing the finger at everybody else. In other words, he's a typical Senate and House Democrat. And over at Fox News, ethics watchdog flags Senator helping wife rake in millions for a nonprofit. See, we see Stacey Abrams' group gets $2 billion. $2 billion? Holy moly. And now we see Mr. Whitehouse's wife. Her nonprofit rakes in millions? Ooh. Remember what we saw about Nancy Pelosi? Her husband's such a genius. Just in the nick of time, he knows what to sell and what to buy. Wow. It's incredible. Senator Sheldon Whitehouse, Democrat. Remember, and for the longest time, this guy belonged to a country club that was an all-white country club, didn't allow blacks. Or maybe it was Jews. Or maybe it was both. Remember that? And he wouldn't resign. Apparently he liked the spaghetti that they would make. I don't know. He wouldn't resign. Eventually they changed after decades of criticism. Sheldon Whitehouse is being accused of violating ethics rules after backing laws that financially benefited his wife's environmental organization. These people are so sleazy. They are so gummed up in crookedness. We barely know, and it's just like the fraud and the bloat in the federal government, what these people do with their public trust. The Democrat senator and climate hawk voted for key laws that provided funding for grants to the environmental nonprofit group that works with his wife, Sandra Whitehouse, and pays her through a consulting firm. All right, there needs to be a criminal investigation of this. I would encourage the Department of Justice, the U.S. Attorney, seriously, there needs to be a criminal investigation of this. This is no joke. The ethics watchdog, the Foundation for Accountability and Civic Trust, called FACT, is asking the Senate Select Committee on Ethics Chairman James Lankford, Vice Chairman Chris Coons, good luck with him, to investigate Whitehouse to determine whether he violated the Senate rules on conflicts of interest. The group works primarily to draw attention to potential Democrat lawmaker ethics violations. Well, somebody used to do this work and file these complaints. I would encourage this group, FACT, to make a request with the U.S. Attorney's Office, the Criminal Division, Public Integrity Section of the Justice Department, copy the Attorney General, to launch a criminal investigation, a preliminary criminal investigation into the White House couple, that would be Sheldon and his wife Sandra, to determine if, I say if, there's any criminal activity, conflict of interests, and so much more. I mean, all you had to do is blow your nose and they'd open a criminal investigation of Donald Trump. Be right back. This country was founded on freedom. Freedom from a country that forced us to buy overpriced tea, then try blockading us when we dumped their tea into the ocean. How'd that work out? Well, it's time to throw your overpriced big wireless contract overboard, too. You don't need to pay $100 a month per person just to get a free phone. PureTalk, my cell phone company, says no to inflated prices and gimmicks. With a qualifying plan of just $45 a month, you can choose a free iPhone 14 or a free Samsung Galaxy with qualifying plans. And yes, this is for a premium service. Unlimited talk, text, 25 gigs of data, and mobile hotspot at a fraction of the price of the big three. All on America's most dependable 5G network. Get your free iPhone 14 or Samsung Galaxy with qualifying plans by visiting puretalk.com/Levin today. Switching is easy. Again, that's puretalk.com/LEVIN to claim your free iPhone or Galaxy with a qualifying purchase from PureTalk. America's wireless company, my wireless company.
The establishment's worst nightmare. Mark Levin. Call in now. 877-381-3811.
Hello, America. Here we be. You and me. You know, I have an article here. Let me pull this up while I can. Damn, printer's not working. It'll be working tomorrow. Getting somebody in there, a buddy of mine, to fix it. Mr. Josh. And he will pull that off. But I have a piece here that underscores what I've been saying about what's going on in terms of the economy of Israel. From the Jerusalem Post, around a third of Israeli households have reported a fall in their income since the start of the war, a proportion that reached as high as 44% among households in the north. 1/5 of Israelis who were forced to evacuate their homes after the October 7 Hamas butchering have lost their jobs. 1/5. Tens of thousands of Israelis were evacuated from towns near the Gaza and Lebanese border in the north and the south, following the attacks, which were immediately followed by missile barrages from Iranian-backed Hezbollah in southern Lebanon. Most spent months living in temporary accommodation across Israel, helped by government subsidies that added to the billions of dollars spent on the military during the war, but away from their jobs and livelihoods. And so the economy and many of these people are suffering significantly. And you don't read about that. You don't read about that in the media because they don't want you to believe any of it, because you see, Israel's the oppressor. And the terrorists are the oppressed. As I wrote in American Marxism, that is widely quoted without attribution, by the way, all over the media. Have you noticed that, Mr. Producer? Oh, yes. I wanted to finish with this Sheldon Whitehouse and his lovely wife, Sandra. She's employed as president of a consulting firm, OceanWorks, LLC, since 2017. Before that, she was a direct employee of Ocean Conservancy, serving as senior policy advisor beginning in 2008. And Ocean Conservancy has received more than $14.2 million in federal grants since 2008. It was given two sizable grants, one for $5.2 million from the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, you know, NOAA. Do you even think that they just pour this money out of these organizations into these phony front groups? For marine debris cleanup in this September, and another for $1.7 million from the EPA, again to assist with marine debris cleanup. Now, the former was funded by the so-called bipartisan infrastructure law. Remember that? Championed by the Biden administration. White House voted on it. White House has never recused himself from these votes, as far as I can tell. The latter was funded through the EPA's annual appropriation bill, which White House also voted for. So the issue is this. Will they open a criminal investigation? Ethics is one thing. A criminal investigation at the U.S. Attorney's Office of the Public Integrity Section of the Criminal Division to determine whether or not White House voted and enriched himself and his family at the same time. I'm not making an accusation. I'm just saying this looks sleazy. And sleazy, to me, at least provides some basis for going a little bit further and undertaking an examination. And so I would think he would want to be cleared of this, no? No, of course not. He doesn't want. Meanwhile, Donald Trump wasn't guilty of a damn thing, didn't do a damn thing, and they were dropping, criminal investigations left and right. So I'm not even encouraging the Trump treatment. If it were the Trump treatment, this guy would be indicted already, and then he'd have to just defend himself. No, I'm saying there ought to be a criminal investigation of the White House family. Of the White House family, I mean Sheldon and Sandra. That White House family. I'm quite serious about this. Not just an ethics investigation. A bigger investigation, as far as I'm concerned. Let's see here. Oh, yes. Biden Judge Amir Hatem Ali. This guy's a bad dude. He's a radical kook. Bad dude, radical kook, should never have been on the bench, ever, never, ever. And he's one of these judges, federal district judges, who thinks he's a federal national judge, who's interfering in the president's constitutional duties as the head of the executive branch. Judge Ali seems to think he should be the head of the executive branch. So Biden Judge Amir Hatem writes, End Wokeness, Ali rules Trump must make our taxes fund foreign aid, USAID projects, and non-governmental organizations. And End Wokeness points out Ali was a founding non-government organizational member. Here's another guy with a potential conflict of interest. Because most of these Democrats and radical leftists, in one form or other, directly or indirectly, they're on the take. They're on the government dole. And this guy Ali was a radical. They knew he was a radical. That's why he was nominated by Biden. That's why he's confirmed by the Democrats. Probably had a few Republicans in there voting for him. I don't know if Lindsey was involved or not. Easy to look it up, but not while I'm on the air. And so he was a founding non-governmental organization member, and he has just ordered that the administration must spend money on foreign aid, USAID projects, and non-governmental organizations. Wow. While they run around talking about a constitutional crisis, as we have these rogue federal district judges who think they're federal national judges, and even putting that aside, who literally think they have authority to run the federal government. And they don't. They and their 2 or 3 little law clerks, they do not. This is a huge problem in America, and it is a growing problem in our country. We've talked about this at some length. It's really quite troubling, and there are things that could be done about it. Like, for instance, Congress has the power to give and the power to take away. Every one of these federal judges, their positions were created by Congress. Their districts were created by Congress. And, yes, Congress can place limitations on trial judges, whether people think so or not, because Congress created them. I love the idea. Congress creates things, and so they have a power that can never be taken back. Or Congress creates things, and the power of those entities are more powerful than the president himself. Now, they're contradictory points, of course, but that doesn't stop them. And it's not going to stop them. And, what's very troubling to me is you have truly legitimate cases these courts should take up and should address and should resolve the right way. I'll give you an example. The U.S. Supreme Court. I can tell that John Roberts and Amy Coney Barrett are throwing in a lot with the libs. I can see it. And here at Town Hall, Sarah Arnold, Clarence Thomas slammed Supreme Court for rejecting pro-life free speech case. It's a free speech case. It's not these local federal district judges imposing their will on how they want the federal government to run. This is a constitutional issue under the First Amendment. Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas expressed strong criticism after the court declined to hear a case involving a pro-life activists and their free speech rights. In a rare public statement, Thomas condemned the decision. That means they couldn't get 4 justices to go along. He argued that the court's refusal to consider the case undermines fundamental First Amendment protections. Now, again, this is where the court should be active. Case in question involved activists challenging restrictions on their ability to express anti-abortion views, a.k.a. pro-life views, a matter Thomas believes the court should have addressed to safeguard free speech and increasing government regulations. On Monday, the Supreme Court declined to hear 2 cases involving pro-life groups who challenged laws banning protests near abortion clinics. Again, this is basic stuff. The court rejected appeals from Coalition Life, or the America's largest professional sidewalk counseling organization in New Jersey and Illinois. Both had appealed lower court rulings that dismissed their lawsuits. They argued that buffer zones, so-called buffer zones, which were set in place after a previous Supreme Court decision in Colorado, keep patients from facing harassment. Thomas criticized the law, which was grounded in the 2000 Hill versus Colorado decision that upheld a similar law based on a right to avoid unwelcome speech under specific circumstances. I don't know. Do Jews have buffer zones at Columbia University? I'm curious, Mr. Producer. In a dissent, Thomas said he would have taken this opportunity to explicitly overrule the Hill decision. For now, we leave lower courts to sort out what, if anything, is left of Hill's reasoning, all while constitutional rights hang in the balance. Clarence Thomas is a real gem, ladies and gentlemen. He is the best of the best. He argued the Supreme Court mistakenly treated the Hill case differently from other First Amendment cases because of the abortion context, stating Hill's abortion exceptionalism turned the First Amendment upside down. The Hill case has been seriously undermined, if not completely eroded, and our refusal to provide clarity is an abdication of our judicial duty. This case would have allowed us to provide needed clarity to lower courts. I'm telling you, I know which justices voted against this, and probably 1 or 2 that we like. Thomas argued the case contained numerous errors and contradicted over 50 years of established First Amendment principles, stating, by the way, have you noticed the originalists are really the civil libertarians on the courts? The originalists. Not the leftists, not the radicals, not the activists. He said this court had never, and since Hill has never, taken such a narrow view of content-based speech restrictions. So he's arguing for free speech. He also claimed the court's First Amendment jurisprudence was manipulated to specifically disadvantage anti-abortion activists, a.k.a. pro-life, and their right to persuade women that abortion is wrong. In 2000, the court upheld a Colorado law in a 6-3 decision. I told you. I can tell you which 6. That prohibited individuals from approaching abortion clinics within 8 feet of another person and within 100 feet of a healthcare facility entrance without consent. This law applied to such things as handing out flyers, displaying signs, or engaging in protests. Thomas called the decision absurd, defunct, erroneous, and long discredited. And he's right, 100%. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
This country was founded on freedom. Freedom from a country that forced us to buy overpriced tea, then try blockading us when we dumped their tea into the ocean. How'd that work out? Well, it's time to throw your overpriced big wireless contract overboard, too. You don't need to pay $100 a month per person just to get a free phone. PureTalk, my cell phone company, says no to inflated prices and gimmicks. With a qualifying plan of just $45 a month, you can choose a free iPhone 14 or a free Samsung Galaxy with qualifying plans. And yes, this is for a premium service. Unlimited talk, text, 25 gigs of data, and mobile hotspot at a fraction of the price of the big 3. All on America's most dependable 5G network. Get your free iPhone 14 or Samsung Galaxy with qualifying plans by visiting puretalk.com/Levin today. Switching is easy. Again, that's puretalk.com/LEVIN to claim your free iPhone or Galaxy with a qualifying purchase from Pure Talk. America's wireless company, my wireless company. All right, Mr. Producer, how much time do we have here? I don't know if we have enough time, do we? Let's go for it. This is Hakeem Jeffries, a.k.a. How Come Jeffries. Cut 2, go.
And you have ideas about how to interrupt what feels like something that we have not experienced since the Civil War in terms of the threat to our republic.
All right. We've not experienced since the Civil War? These people are sick. I mean, they're just sick. Go ahead.
Well, it's certainly the case that we understand the scale of the threat. That can't be doubted. The CBC, which I'm a part of, definitively understands the scale of the threat. Our communities have been
I assume the CBC is the Congressional Black Caucus, I'm guessing. What is the problem here? You're not allowed to cut out all the bloat? And that's like the Civil War? Do you see how sick these people are? Go ahead.
Since before the Civil War. I'm a direct descendant of those very communities, so we understand the struggle.
What are you talking about? You apparently don't. Because if you're comparing this to the struggle for freedom out of slavery, that's about as sick as it gets. It's like when they run around and talk about the Holocaust and Hitler. They minimize, they diminish, they dumb down what slaves experienced and what happened to slaves. They dumb down and diminish what happened to Jews in the Third Reich under Hitler in order to try and make some cheap political point. Go ahead.
The strength of people like John Lewis, which we're going to channel, that's my experience.
You're going to channel John Lewis? John Lewis? What's John Lewis have to do with this? We all know who John Lewis was. He was a great civil rights leader who was beaten very, very badly in Selma. That has nothing to do with this. This is sick. And Donald Trump is saving money for all people in this country of every race, of every faith, of every genitalia, of every background. This is about big government swallowing up our society. It's not about the Civil War, you morons. I'll be right back.
He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, America. Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811. Anyway, doing the show a little differently today. I don't normally do shows this way. There are just so many things flying around in every direction. I'm trying to grab them with my hands. There goes the chair. Trying to grab it, pull it down, and explain it, because so many of them are actually quite important. As you know, Lisa Murkowski is a saboteur. She got her seat originally through nepotism. Her father had been an elected official in Alaska. She wins by the skin of her teeth. So she got behind this movement, probably started the movement, to change the election system to make it much like California, where the first two highest voters in a preliminary election run against each other for the Senate. So the parties lose power. That is, so there's not really a Republican primary, because she would lose in a Republican primary. So she gets behind this movement, which she claimed was independent of her. You know she's a liar. And this movement then turns the voting system into the California system with some kind of priority voting. And there's one other thing you ought to know. She gets more support from the NEA than almost any other senator, the National Education Association. They have bought and paid for her. They own her. And they man the precincts all throughout Alaska, which, of course, is a massive state, many rural areas. And the NEA takes good care of their friend Lisa Murkowski. So she is she's owned and paid for by the NEA thugs. That is the union bosses, not the membership. The union boss thugs. Well, the members, too, if they vote for the thugs. But there's about 35% Republicans in these teachers' unions who are not represented properly. And some Democrats. But Murkowski is, despite all her pretense to be independent and all the rest of it, she's bought and paid for. She's a hardcore liberal. She denounces her own party, not because of rhinos and all, but because, people try to hold her accountable. They're trying to use the electoral process to hold her accountable, so she changes the electoral process. And hopefully Alaska will change it back, and the Republicans then will have a real primary and throw her ass out of office. But here she is. Of course, they go to her at NBC News. All the media go to her and Collins, and, they used to go to Romney and their ilk. Because the media are not about reporting. The media are about destroying. And destroying Trump. And here she is. Cut 5, go.
When the executive basically blows by Congress or rolls right over Congress, and we allow that, we're ceding our responsibility.
And what responsibility is that? Does Congress have the control over the executive branch decisions about human resources? When did that happen? Did I miss something? President has leeway to organize departments within departments. Does he need permission from Lisa Murkowski? This is a woman who's been elected multiple times. She doesn't even understand separation of powers. Article 1, Article 2, Article 3. She has no comprehension of what she's even saying. She just talks in these shibboleths, in these generalities. She heard somebody say it, so she regurgitates it. She's a Trump hater. That's what she is. So ceding responsibility to the executive branch is when the President of the United States, who's in the Constitution, makes a decision that a GS-13 bureaucrat in some unknown department or agency wishes to be able to make without oversight by the President of the United States, and somehow that's rolling through Congress's authority? What does that have to do with anything? Go ahead.
I believe that you can absolutely be a 100% supporter of President
But you're
Trump.
not. You don't like Trump. You don't need to talk for 100% supporters. You're not even a 10% supporter. So here she is lecturing, and you can hear that she's pretty much an idiot. You can hear it in her voice and in the way she expresses herself. Go ahead.
And still stand up for the institution of the Senate, for the legislative branch.
And what is it exactly that you're standing up for? She never says. They never do. What is it? What is the legislative authority that we're talking about here? Did Trump violate some law? Even these judges, even these Biden-Obama judges, who are so thoroughly and completely out of control. Not all of them, by the way, but most of them. Most of them, like this guy, Judge Ali. They're not even citing any statutes. What exactly is she talking about, let alone these judges talking about? And remember, what's a judge? A judge is nothing more than a lawyer in a black robe. That's it. Go ahead.
Authorities that are prescribed to us specifically by the Constitution.
And which ones are you talking about exactly? Well, we have the right to spend through budgets. Really? Yes. There are limits on that authority, you know, Murkowski. You don't. You're a low IQer. For instance, if you fund things that are fraudulent, if you fund things that are wasteful, if you fund things that are inappropriate, unethical, president's not required to follow through on that. He's not required under some heading of we have the right to spend money to allow people not to show up for work and not work. It's his responsibility to ensure that the funds are spent the way they're supposed to be spent. And he has a pretty broad lane in which to do it. Congress is not the executive branch. There are limits on Congress as there are limits on both branches. Go ahead.
And so, but if we don't, if we just say, well, we like his policies, and so therefore we're going to cede some.
Why don't you give us specifics? Here we go again. Hey, let's say I'm a reporter and I have a microphone in her rather substantial face. And I say, Senator Murkowski, which provision of the Constitution is the president violating? And what statute and statutory language are you talking about? Which is it? What is it? We want to know. And you talk about the Constitution and Congress's rights being rolled over. What rights are those? The president's the head of the executive branch. It's a unitary executive branch, whether left-wing professors like it or not. And the president has the ability to reach into the bureaucracy and change some rules and offer early retirement and to lay off people if he feels that there's too many. Congress does not have the constitutional power to micromanage the management of the executive branch. Even if it has tried, even if it has passed laws to do so, they're unconstitutional. Any more than the president has the power to run the staff of a senator or a House member. That's the nature of sharing power. That's the nature of separation of powers. And on top of it all, as I've said till I'm blue in the face, this whole bureaucracy could be said to be unconstitutional. It's there as a practical matter, so the courts uphold it. But the truth is, there's not a whisper of it, not a syllable of it in your Constitution. Nothing. Zero. Go ahead.
Don't think that this is the last time you're going to see that.
Mm-hmm. What are you talking about? You're such an idiot. You really are. I'm independent. No. You're a moron. It's just crazy. Then Hakeem Jeffries, after the Civil War, of course, such a brilliant point, he goes even further. Cut 7, go.
I think it does help, for instance, that our House Republican colleagues are held accountable. Rachel, you appropriately mentioned we've got the narrowest majority that any party has had in the Congress since before.
So what? It's called the majority, you idiot. And why do you even care when you rely on the unelected bureaucrats, unelected judges to impose your will? You guys always want it both ways. You're worse than schizophrenic. On the one hand, you say, oh, we need a vote of the people. On the other hand, you're ruled by the unelected branches. Isn't it amazing? One of which you created. You can't decide because you don't want to decide. You just want power. You don't care the means. You just want the ends. That's it. Go ahead.
Narrowest majority. 218 Republicans.
So what, Schmo? So what? Your presidents elected where they didn't even get majorities. They got pluralities. I can name one. Abraham Lincoln in his first term. He wasn't elected by a majority. He got a plurality. Does that make him illegitimate? You moron. Go ahead.
Democrats. The Democrats are holding together. We're holding together, for instance, on this reckless Republican budget, which is a betrayal of working class Americans. And cuts to Medicaid, cuts to SNAP.
You know, it's interesting. Medicaid isn't even in this proposal, Mr. Producer. I just went back and looked during the break. It's not even in this proposal. But they want it to be in this proposal, and they want cuts made to Medicaid so they can run on it. How about they propose some cuts that they actually support? Can they do that? No, they can't do that. Because the subterranean government within a government is their government. They don't care about fraud and waste and abuse as long as they get their ideologues funded, their non-governmental organizations funded, their wives funded, their buddies funded, as long as they can have power and expand that power. They don't give a damn about fraud, waste, and abuse. If it's your money, it's not theirs. Who cares? I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Over at the Blaze Media, Rebecca Zelko, House Committee shockingly reveals IRS tax record leaks under Biden were 5 times worse than originally reported. House Judiciary Committee Republicans under the great Jim Jordan published a new disclosure today that unveiled the true scale of IRS leaks under Joe Biden. Ready for this? The new disclosure revealed the IRS leaked taxpayer information of over 405,000 Americans, including President Donald Trump, rather than the initial 70,000 figure. Don't you love it when Doge and Musk and the crowd, when they're digging in this, what will they use this information for? They may leak it and everything. This is the thing about Democrats, the left, and their media. They are always guilty of what they accuse everybody else of. They are always guilty of it. The IRS admission confirms the committee's suspicion in recent reports that show the scope of the leak was much broader than what the Biden regime IRS initially led the public to believe, the committee said. Have you seen this on TV anywhere? No. Jim Jordan, who chairs the committee, attributed this discrepancy to political convenience, noting the IRS had previously been weaponized by Democratic administrations. Oh, do tell. We remember Obama and the IRS, don't we? The Obama IRS targeted conservatives, most specifically the Tea Party. The Biden IRS leaked your data. Just the latest example of corruption in our government, said Representative Barry Moore of Alabama. Not only did the Biden IRS allow this leak to happen, massive leak, 405,000? They lied to the American people about how many taxpayers it affected. I'm sure the media are very, very concerned about this. The very media that keeps attacking Elon Musk. That's right. The left is in meltdown mode, accusing Elon of accessing their personal data when it was Biden's IRS that leaked the data of 405,000 Americans, said Representative Rick Langworthy of New York. You know, ladies and gentlemen, when you're leaking the data of 405,000 Americans, that's not a mistake. That's just too much. Oh, I'm sorry, we didn't mean 405,000 Americans. They leaked the data. I mean, the IRS, I thought it was a crime to leak that data. No? The answer is yes. It is a crime to leak that data. How much time do we have here, Richard? Not enough, I guess. You know, after the break, ladies and gentlemen, I want to do something that's rarely done on radio. I want to play something for you that I believe is around 3 minutes long, give or take. And I want to set this up properly. I saw this because it was posted by my dear friend David Freeman, the former ambassador to Israel from the United States in the first term of Donald Trump. He's a great man, Freeman, a great thinker, too. And he wrote a book called One Jewish State to make the case for Israeli sovereignty based upon the modern convergence of multiple considerations, including faith, human rights, geopolitics, and national security. But that's not why I'm mentioning this. He posted a video of a Muslim scholar. And I want to praise this Muslim scholar, and I want you to hear him, who has made points, he argues, based on the Quran. And he argues that the Quran recognizes and supports the Jewish people in what's called modern Israel. And in fact, compels it. He says that's what God told his people, all of his people, including Muslims, that this is the home of the chosen people, the Jewish people, and that it is in the best interests of the Jews, Christians, and Muslims to embrace it. I don't know how this man, and I really hesitate to say this, can even survive in the current environment. I really don't. I really don't. But his words are so profound and so contrary to everything you hear from these so-called Muslim experts on TV. from the imams, not just in our country, but all around the world, from the terrorists themselves, from these Arab leaders? This man says no. The Jews in Israel are God's children, these particular children, going home. They've been there for 4,000 years. 4,000 years. And it's in the best interest of all of our faiths to embrace it and embrace what God intended and what God said. It's really, I want to give it the time that it deserves, the proper time that it deserves. And I have to tell you, I've never seen anything like this. I've never heard anything like this. I suspect there's more of it. We just don't know about it. We just don't know about it. And so I'm going to play it after the bottom of the hour now that I've set it up so you can understand what's taking place here. I'm certainly glad, and I want to thank Ambassador Friedman for posting this because I think it's absolutely profound. I'm going to play this for you right after we return, and then we'll take some calls. The show has been chock full of news events and so forth. I don't normally like to do that way, but there were just... I had to pass information along to you, folks who may not be aware of what's taking place in the country today. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin, the thunder on the right. Call in now, 877-381-3811.
So, ladies and gentlemen, we have a little breaking news for you here, and it's good. We had a Levin surge that I posted several hours ago because there was a vote in the House that was coming up before this show came on. Here's the Washington Compost. House Republicans narrowly approved framework for President Donald Trump's legislative agenda, setting off a sprint with the Senate to reshape the tax code, implement strict new immigration policy, drill for new energy resources, and spend billions on national defense. It passed 217 to 215. Would allow Congress's GOP majorities to bypass a Democrat Senate filibuster through what's known as the Budget Reconciliation Act. Now, this is something that's done all the time. The Democrats and Republicans agreed that the filibuster would not apply to these budget processes. But Republicans still face significant challenges before they can pass what Trump was taking to call his big, beautiful bill. House and Senate must agree on competing approaches. Even though both chambers have now passed their own versions of the legislation, they're going to get this done. I believe they're going to get this done. And I want to thank all of you Levinites who made calls to your members of Congress, the Republicans in the House, when I posted that earlier today. Very, very important that they get these initial bills and these initial policies in place for Donald Trump, and they can save their arguments for next year. But in order to get this economy back, secure the border, build up the military, and get all these things done, they're putting in one or two packages. It's got to get done now. It just does. And I'm sure there's complaints and issues and all the rest. It's just the nature of the beast. All right, Mr. Producer, where are we here? If you can remind me, please. Oh, yes. Let's go to Cut 11. This is this Muslim scholar I was telling you about. I would turn up the volume, seriously, folks. I don't think most of you have ever heard anything like this. Again, this is a Muslim scholar. Go.
We cannot, I'm afraid, have justification of the existence of Israel based merely on archaeology. While it's undeniable, whether it's the coins or whether it's the excavation or whether it's the architecture that's becoming more and more prominent, that there was thousands of years of 3,500 years plus of Jewish presence. The real argument, and I'm sorry, it's not what Lapid says. Every time I hear Lapid speaking here, he talks about the Holocaust. The Holocaust arguably was an outcome of the lack of the existence of the State of Israel. But the Holocaust is not the justification for the State of Israel. The State of Israel is there because God guided Moses and Joshua out of the land of Egypt from the tyranny of Pharaoh to go and worship God freely in the land of Jacob, the land of Yaqub. And that we read in the Quran, يَا قَوْمِ ادْخُلُوا الْأَرْضَ الْمُقَدَّسَةَ الَّتِي كَتَبَ اللَّهُ لَكُمْ. My friend Rick Sofer and I compare notes on this often. So I think that's the Quranic verse. So I think that's the first component, that Israelis have to recognize that their land certificate comes from God and make that argument unashamedly, but that requires Israelis to return to God. Thank you, but I just think it's the truth and there's no other way around it. Israelis have to return to God to justify, their existence and their prosperity and the many miracles that Iran lobs rockets at them and they survive again and again. I think you all understand what I'm getting at on the Israel side. Once we have that genuine recognition in Israeli society that it is a country founded on faith and scripture, then what you have is the language with which to speak to the rest of the region. Because even an Arab atheist will say, Inshallah, I'll see you tomorrow. Even an Arab atheist, after he or she sneezes, will say, Alhamdulillah. Even an Arab atheist, when they say goodbye to you, will say, Allah yubarik fikum. It's part of Arab culture. It is what it is. Whereas when Israelis adopt that language, when Jews adopt that language in talking to the rest of their neighbors, 500 million Sunni Arabs, you'll see that suddenly Muslims will realize the truth. That is, these are the children of Israel, the children of Yaqub. There's a Jabal Musa in Egypt and in Saudi Arabia. These are children who are coming home. And they're welcome back. And I think that is the ultimate. By the way, what is Zionism? Zionism is predicated on Judaism. I find it bizarre. People say, I'm a Zionist, I'm not a Jew. It doesn't work like that. You've got to understand the supposition there is, Mount Zion is a holy mountain representing Jerusalem, and the Jewish return is about returning to Jerusalem. So I think that is fundamental in order for Israel to thrive.
Mark Levin.
I hate to say this, but we're having severe technological problems here, seriously, that are literally cutting me off from my producer and cutting me off from you. And we have a backup line, and I go there, and it doesn't seem to matter, does it, Mr. Producer? So it's very important that our friends at Westwood One, our engineers, tomorrow work overtime to get this fixed. This has been going on several days, and it's getting worse with each successive day. We've got to get this fixed, and we've got to get this fixed now, whatever it takes. Because if I'm not here tomorrow, it's because we didn't fix it. So it's got to be fixed. We can't be cut off in the middle. Now that Muslim scholar, I think you'll agree, was remarkable. Absolutely fantastic. And he's right. He's saying, just tell the truth. The holy word is that this land belongs to the Jews, and God's sending them back to their holy land. And Lapid, the really moronic opposition leader, one of the parties against Netanyahu, he keeps saying that Israel was established because of the Holocaust. He says, no, it wasn't. Israel was established about 4,000 years ago. The Holocaust is the Jewish people returning to their homeland. But because Lapid is a secularist, for the most part, this is how he talks. And that's the problem with these secularists. It doesn't mean you have to be, one of the most fundamentalist or strictest of Jews. It just means you have to at least understand something about your own faith. And that's with any faith, as a matter of fact. But it seems that those with the biggest mouth have the least knowledge. Let's go to Dave. Benita Springs, Florida, XM Satellite. Dave, how are you?
Hello, Mark. Yesterday, you were spotlighting the high property tax assessment increases in Florida and the Rhino County government officials that keep increasing assessments, taxes, and fees to expand public employee programs, pay, and benefits. And
Correct.
A big ripoff of the taxpayers is the pension bonus system in Florida. It's called the Deferred Retirement Option Program, and for 8 years, politicians and bureaucrats file fake retirement paperwork, no separation of employment, and they receive a paycheck and a pension at the same.
Whoa. Isn't that a crime?
Well,
if you're not retired and you're pulling out of the pension plan at the same time that you're earning a salary, I mean, is this built into this rule, into this law?
It is. It's unfortunately went from 5 years to 8 years. It's a 60% increase where people defer the retirement system. It's unethical.
So what exactly are they able to do?
They're able to file retirement paperwork. They retire from their job, but it's a deferred retirement option program where their pension goes into a money interest-bearing account, and they receive their paycheck and their pension at the same time to do the same job, and they don't pay the standard 3% of their salary to the Florida retirement system. I have a
who signed off on this?
Unfortunately, Governor DeSantis and the legislature. Starting July 1st of 2023, they went from...
So it just started in 2023?
It increased from 5 years to 8 years in 2023.
So who started it?
The program's been around 20 years.
20 years. Who was governor 20 years ago? I don't even know.
I don't remember. The target was originally people with very rare skill sets, scientists, pilots, teachers with 25 years of experience.
Now, how do you know this? You sound very, very well versed in this.
Well, since 2018, a group of us tax fighters have been...
Well, wait a minute. Jeb Bush, Mr. Producer, says was the governor. Is that correct?
Jeb Bush sounds right.
Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry. This is important.
It is. TripleDippers.org outlines this program where, unfortunately, the state of Florida is now $39 billion, that's with a B, in debt, unfunded pension debt liability, and it's crowding out money to our roads, for operational funds, for senior services, for tax
Okay,
cuts.
let me ask you another question. Am I right about these boards of supervisors, even these Republican boards in some of these Republican counties? People don't even know what they're doing because, we're busy. We don't have time to watch all these people. They're throwing money hand over fist at these teachers' unions, aren't they?
They are. And unfortunately, the test scores have been plummeting.
All right. Well, thank you for your call, Dave. Appreciate it very much. Let's go to Larry, Roberts, Illinois, the great WRPW. How are you, Larry?
Hi, Mark. You're on fire tonight, my friend.
Thank you.
I really appreciate the fact that you talked about that judge, the Biden appointee, half-witted moron, that I think if you pull the string on this guy, you'll see that he's connected somehow to a certain little politician by the name of Stacey Abrams.
Oh, really?
I believe he may be, and the reason I said to somebody the other day, they had some talk about a $2 billion that was found that was going to the EPA, and there was a connection to
we've talked about this. $2 billion. EPA went to a group that she's affiliated with that previously had $100 in the bank. Now, these scams have to be criminally investigated because that's enough, okay? These aren't ethics violations. They could well be full-blown criminal investigations. And that's enough of a pretext, in my view, just looking at those numbers, that there needs to be a criminal investigation. Same with Mr. and Mrs. White House, those activities. I'm not saying they've committed crimes. I'm saying there needs to be a criminal investigation. All these politicians who are enriching themselves and becoming rich as a result of this, we got to put our foot down. It's enough.
I agree 100%, man. And I'm so glad that you had the guts to bring it out because, I just found it out and I said, I wonder if Mark knows about this. I turned the radio on and here you were talking about it. I said, holy Jesus, that's wonderful news. I'm just tickled to death to see somebody had the guts to jump on this, and thank you very much.
Thank you, my friend. Appreciate you very much. Man, we got great weekend shows lined up on Life, Liberty, and Levin. Have you set your DVRs yet, or whatever you do to record a show on your smart TV? Always remember 8 p.m. Saturday Eastern, 8 p.m. Sunday Eastern, and here's the thing. We are up against it every time. CBS had massive ratings for its FBI show. NBC had massive ratings with this Tom Hanks, I guess, animal show or whatever it is. Both of them start at 8 p.m. Eastern. That's me. And yet, I'm told by the higher-up muckety-mucks at Fox, our numbers were unbelievable. When you look at our show on Saturday night, they're playing Bill Maher on CNN. He gets very good demo. So I'm up against that. Now, we crush him, but we're always in a battle with somebody or some group on Saturday or Sunday because 8 p.m. is the coveted slot on the weekends. The coveted slot on the weekends for the networks, for all cable TV, for Netflix, for all of it. And so I'm so proud of the fact that you come and watch no matter what, no matter what's going on. Just go ahead and set your DVRs as well. We salute our armed forces, police officers, firefighters, emergency personnel, our truckers, men and women in Ukraine. I hope you got good news coming soon. I really do. Our brothers and sisters in Israel, we have your back. Donald Trump does. And I salute all of you, the American people, red-blooded Americans. What would the world do without you? See you tomorrow.